Hello everybody, welcome back to the Panel by Panel Comics channel with me, your host. Today is my Panel by Panel Comics review for the comic books that I picked up for the week of March 25th, 2026. We have 16 books to get through, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Coming in at number 16, we have The Center Holds. This is issue number 2 from Boom Studios. This is written by Larry Hama. It is 32 pages for the price of $5. This one was a really tough read for me personally, and it was so tough, in fact, that I couldn't even get through it. I read the first 5-6 pages and I could not go anymore because it just made me feel so claustrophobic, and not in a good way. There's so much going on, so many characters that have to be told a story in this comic book. And it's only a mini series. It's 4 issues long. I'm sorry, but The Center Holds, for me personally, it's an F. I really wanted it to be good, but Larry Hama, I'm sorry, it's an F. Next, at number 15, we have Noel. This is issue number 3, 32 pages for the price of $5. An up and down issue for me personally. Majority of this issue dealt with Noel getting his ass beat by Thanos, but then Noel just teleports inside of Thanos and we're A-okay, and he just bursts out of his body, and just like that, Thanos is now dead. So who knows what's going to be next for the Purple Titan Thanos. But then we see Noel becomes the Light God and gains these new power set. But Noel reveals that he's on a mission to kill Eddie Brock and strike revenge against him. But while in flight, he gets teleported to this random area and he doesn't know where he's at, and he meets an interesting enemy of his. So coming in at number 15, Noel gets a B- for me. Could have been a lot better. I enjoyed it, but I will continue it. It's a 5-issue miniseries, so I will complete it. Next, we go over to an independent comic book. We have Ripcord. This is issue number 2, 32 pages, $5. This comic starts with a scene where Dylan's sister, I believe her name is Claire, is where we see where she is, and she's locked up and we have no clue where this place is, and it looks like a zombie figure is almost like the prison guard for this section of an area that we don't know of. But we see that Dylan wakes up after fighting all those bikers from the previous issue. If you can't remember that, go ahead and read issue 1 if you own it. And then she gets help from this guy named Colby, and he takes her into this mine to get some better weapons, and she finds a minigun, and she bursts out of there and goes to town on all these people. We see her gauge out the eyes of the gas station owner, who's a terrible person, by the way, just an absolute terrible human being. But we see her burst out of the mine with that minigun and just mow down the bikers, and we see now that she's going to make Colby take her to wherever this base is of the bikers. And at the very end, the story concludes with what appears to be the main villain of the sister of this beast, this zombie beast. And he completely rips out this dude's entire body. You see right there. It looks great. I'm very impressed with the artwork. So Ripcord issue number 2 comes in low at number 14, but it's still a solid B- for me personally. Next, we go over to Detective Comics, DC. We have Absolute Martian Manhunter coming in a bit lower on my rankings than typical. It comes in at number 13, a 32-page comic for $5. And this one was just a little too weird for me. And that's the whole point of Absolute Martian Manhunter. It's supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be chaotic. You're supposed to just fall in love with the artwork. And I enjoyed the art. I just wanted it to be a little bit better for me personally. Now we see John escape this false reality and go to a place called Nahito Bay. And he finally reclaims the Green Martian after so many issues of them being apart from each other. It was just way too chaotic for me personally, and I'm still enjoying the series. But throughout the book, at the very end, we see Bridget with Tyler, and she is being manipulated into trying to get a good sense of view of like, oh my gosh, I just want to make my son happy. What can I possibly do to make you happy? And he's just like, there's only one thing that you can do that would make me happy, and that is to kill my dad, kill John, because we know the White Martian wants the Green Martian dead. So that's the simple story there. Simple fix, right? You want to make me happy, kill my enemy. But Absolute Martian Manhunter issue number 10 comes in at number 13, a solid B, lower than typical. It was my pick of the week the last time it came out. Comes in a bit lower on the rankings, a book that is usually good for me. Next, we have The Final Boss, issue number 12. This is issue number 5, a 32-page comic for the price of $4. We pick up with another flashback of Tommy's dad going through this cave, and this was the event that led him to becoming missing. And we still don't know where his dad is, so we'll see if we ever end up finding him. But we cut back to this fight scene, and the artwork from Tyler Kirkham is just so unbelievably good. That's a huge reason that you're getting this issue for. We cut into the fight with the Queen Witch and Tommy Brazen, and he is kind of getting the work given to him. The Queen Witch controls the fire and does all this different stuff. But then Tommy gets a brutality and ends up killing the Queen Witch, freeing the slaves and all the people there. But then he has to go on the run from these demon dogs who were loyal to the Queen Witch. By the way, just what a cool little two-page spread there with Tommy Brazen and the Queen Witch. Typically what you see with like a Mortal Kombat type of scene. Really cool looking two-page spread there. But Tommy goes on the run from these demon dogs and gets some help from this lady who we still don't know who the name is, this masked vigilante. We don't know who she is, but she helps Tommy escape. Tommy gets these fire powers that he picked up from the Queen Witch, which I thought was a little weird. I think it was just cool to have him be super enhanced. But at the end, he's flirting with this lady. We'll see what happens between those two. But Final Boss checks in at number 12 for me. Another solid B comic book for this week. A book that is ending this week was Dungeons of Doom, issue number 3, 40 pages for $6. And into this anthology series, we get the first story out of the way with the US soldiers who got trapped underneath the rubble of Dr. Doom's castle. They got trapped. They got this kind of device that is more of a curse where you say this phrase and you're kind of put in a trance, a murder trance, and then they come to the top. And sorry, I just hit my mic there. But Red Hulk is there and he has to try to save these locals of Latveria from potentially getting this disease or essentially curse put upon them. And he does something that affects everybody in the area to become deaf. They all become deaf. And he's like, my men died so you could live broken. Count your blessings in your brokenness and pray I don't come back for you. Just so badass and complete dickhead move. But one of my favorite stories is probably the Hydra people who found this Mjolnir type of hammer, and then they get trapped underneath the ground, and the person that had it said, oh, I'm worthy, and then a whole earthquake happens. He's like, it was mine after all, eh, Max? It's like Max, I don't know how else to say it. Worthy. Basically, he's trapped because he can't pick it up, but he's the one that's going to end up dying with it on his chest. Cool end of that story there. We get Umbra battling this Bat God. I thought was interesting. Probably the weakest story, even though it's very sad. And then one of the best ones was the final one, the Freedom Fighters getting trapped underneath with that insane creature. And we see that the woman leaves one of the guys for good after he risked his life saving her. She doesn't do the same, and he ends up dying underneath the rubble. So Dungeons of Doom, issue number 11. Fun little mini-series here for Marvel. I gave it a B. It was solid enough. I highly recommend picking that book up. All 3 issues were really good for Dungeons of Doom. Next, we have Wolverine, Weapons of Armageddon. This is issue number 10. 32 pages for the price of $6. Only 2 more issues of this as we are leading towards the Armageddon event. The hunt for Tyler continues in this issue, and we get more of Nuke, who we get the backstory of why he has that American tattoo on his face, and it's because Logan clawed him whenever he was developing, and they basically had to cover him up with a big old American tattoo, or else he would have basically been probably killed, because they're like, you can't be the Captain America of this time with a big old scar of claws on your face. They then run into the modern day Captain America, which is David Coulson, and we also get an interlude about Terry in this comic that I thought was very sad. Terry's just trying to live his life, and he ends up crying here in the very corner. I don't know if you can see that. It was just so sad because he can't control how he's changing. And You really do learn to feel for the character, and you realize that Nuke hates the guts out of Logan. He really wants to kill Logan so bad, and you can't really blame him because of Logan, he has a stupid American tattoo on his face. It looks dumb, but at the very end of this comic book, you get to convince David Coulson to help Logan and Terry, or Logan and Terry's search leads them to David Coulson, and they convince him to go help them search for the other people. It isn't Terry, I can't remember her name, but anyways, Wolverine and the lady convince Colton to help them move on and go search for Terry. So Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon, solid book at number 10. That is a B comic book for me. Going inside the top 10, we have number 9, Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue number 25, 32 pages for $5, part 5 of 9 of the Death Spiral event. It was a solid book. We saw Carnage, Venom, and Spider-Man all fighting against Torment, but we saw Carnage speaking a lot with Torment, and it was interesting because Carnage is trying to find a new host, and Torment nearly kills Venom / MJ because he uses the shocking guns on them, and you never want to see that, and Peter was very scared. And then you get Eddie and Carnage starting to fight back against Torment after Eddie regains consciousness. Carnage was trying to become the new host, I guess, for whoever's under this Torment figure, this Torment symbiote. And then he escapes, and we get a little interlude of Osborn and Miles Morales talking to each other about just weights, and Miles is like, you want to teach us? Teach us what? And Osborn weirdly grins, smile. He says, how to defend yourselves against me. Yeah, really creepy, right? It's interesting. But then Carnage explains the whole situation, or Eddie Brock at least explains his whole situation and how he became Carnage, the situation that led to be. MJ's pissed at him. She's frustrated. She calls up Venom agent, or anti-Venom, Flash Thompson. Hey, can you go save my aunt and Peter's aunt, because it's not looking really good right now for us. We need some help. And we see the issue continues with Torment. They find out, oh my gosh, he's gonna go to Dylan, and that's where the book ends. Torment holding Dylan by his face, looking really good. Still haven't got the reveal of who Torment is yet, but Amazing Spider-Man issue number 25 comes in at my number 9. And coming in at number 8, we have The Punisher. This is issue number 2, 32 pages for this comic, $5. Frank is still going crazy because he wants to know what is happening to him. Why can't he remember any of these memories? And he takes Micro to go try to figure out what's going on with him. And he takes him to go see this neurologist to run a CT, a head CT, and find out what's wrong with him. Meanwhile, we see the I guess, news lady, Madeline Phillips, working late at night trying to do a hard story, and she's talking to this, I guess, janitor called Gary, and we find out that Gary is not actually Gary. It is, in fact, oh my gosh, why am I blanking out on his name? Jackpot? No, Jigsaw. We find out it's Jigsaw, and then we get an update on Tombstone in the prison. He's having a hard time because he's actually, the guards now work for Jigsaw. They don't work for him. Tombstone's like, I will pay you triple whatever he's paying you. And he reveals the cuts on his tongue. Really, really creepy. A really good issue here of Punisher. I think Benjamin Percy is killing it with the character of Frank Castle. We see Frank did not like the results from this corrupt neurologist who is a bad person. He has a lot of debt, drinks a lot of terrible things. So that's kind of why they pressure him into doing this, or else they will reveal his secrets. But then Frank's like, there's something wrong with me. But the neurologist tells him, no, you're perfectly fine. I don't even know how you're alive because there's so much trauma there. I can see all the scar tissue, but you're perfectly fine. You should be dead. Somehow, some way you're alive. And Frank just does not like the answer. And then he collapses to the ground, holding his head, having like a little mini panic attack, it appears. The neurologist leaves the scene, and Frank is just there on the ground, not knowing what's happening. And Jigsaw's having a meeting with all the crime bosses in town, and Madeline Phillips is sitting outside waiting for something to happen. We'll see what happens in the next issue. Punisher comes in at my number 8 on my top 10. A B+ comic book, really solid. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next issue. Next, we have the Quintessence War, part 4 of 6. This is Void Rivals, issue number 28, 32 pages for $4. This issue did have constant action. We get a throwback to the Celila and her brother. Basically, him telling her, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to join the High Guard. And she was very sad, felt abandoned by her brother. And then we get some action from the contestants being like, wow, we actually are getting our shit handed to us. We need to release the tribunal. And they eventually do. And he looks so cool. A cool 2-issue spread here from Andre Bresson, who just does a fantastic job with the artwork throughout this entire comic book. And he has done a tremendous job just as a whole with Void Rivals. Very impressed with the work that he has done. And then it turns into a very quick read from there on out. We get some action of the tribunal making his way to Earth. The Quintessence basically saying, tremble before my arrival. You now face the tribunal. War judge of the Quintessence, I come to pass judgment for the war crimes you have committed. And he looks terrifying, but also so cool at the same time. I'm really enjoying it. He demolishes a whole lot of the Agorian and Zertonian forces, and Derek's dad's like, we have to make our final stand. There's nowhere for us to run. We get an update with what's going on the ship right now with Pythona, and they start crashing down. We don't know what's going to happen there, but Void Rivals, it's been consistently good throughout. I enjoyed this issue. Hopefully that he can land the plane with this Quintessence War. Robert Kirkman, part 4 of 6. I give Quintessence, I keep calling it Quintessence War. Void Rivals, a B+, coming in at my number 7. Number 6, we have another Image comic. We have Capes. This is issue number 5, 32 pages for $4. Another Robert Kirkman book. We get Chronodile in this issue. They make their return to the Invincible universe, and they start whooping Cape's ass. And many heroes die to Chronodile's hands, but then Marshall, who is the current leader right now of Capes, he basically consumes his brother's ashes because he feels strength that he has never felt once in his life. And that's essentially the sacrifice that they were talking about in the synopsis of this issue. And he becomes Meteor Master. And he's the one that's actually on the cover. I had no clue who that was, but it's this dude. It's the twin, Marshall, the Meteor twin. So he becomes Meteor Master, and his new name, that's his new name. He flies straight through the head of Chronodile after whooping his ass. He's like, oh my gosh, is that all you have? Yada, yada, yada. And then he flies right through his head, and the Meteor Master says, you've got exactly 2 seconds left in your life. Enjoy it while you can. Completely action-packed. Really enjoyed it. Not a whole lot of dialogue in this issue, but it didn't need it. Capes, issue number 5, for me personally, gets a B+, and it's number 6 on my comic review. Kicking off the top 5, we have a Marvel book. This is Iron Man, issue number 3. It starts by updating us on Madame Mask and the people that she has kidnapped to try to become Tony Stark 2.0 and create an Iron Man armor. Then we cut from that to Iron Man saving MODOK's ass as we see a huge attack here from AIM, and Iron Man's trying to find out what's going on. Why are they doing this? And MODOK tried to play it cool. He's like, they are jealous of my genius. They're threatened by my vision for AIM's future. And then we see this hooded figure save Tony and kind of beat up MODOK, and then the guardian angel says, I'm a warning, we're watching you. Who knows who that is? Not really sure who, but then MODOK reveals that AIM is at Civil War. Something bad is happening. Everybody's trying to become the leader of AIM. Please don't hurt me. And then Tony's like, oh crap, I got a first date to fly to. So he has his first date with this new love life. Her name, sorry, trying to figure it out. Luna, that's her name, Luna. And he rushes over to this first date, but in the middle of the first date, it gets interrupted after what looked to be a very intimate moment with Tony and Luna. Pepper is there, and of course she is. Tony has to have a rain check after checking in on Melinda, who he gave that tip about where AIM is, what is happening, this civil war between everybody that runs AIM, because Zemo died in the one world under Doom. So there's no head of AIM right now. Everybody's fighting for that. And Tony figures out, oh my gosh, Madame Mask, she's on my helicarrier that when I ran S.H.I.E.L.D., that's where she is. That's where all these people are at. Tony goes there, but then he falls into a trap, and Madame Mask is like, you're going to have to figure out a way to get out of this one, just like you did back in those caves in Afghanistan. You're going to have to find a way to get out of this one. See what you can create. Iron Man issue number 3, a great book this week from Marvel. Kicks off my top 5. It was an A- comic book. So great. Can't wait to see what the next issue holds for Joshua Williamson. At number 4, we have an Ignition Press book. This is Just Brutal. Issue number 2, 32 pages for $5. In issue 1, we followed the brother, and now in issue 2, we follow the sister, and this girl has bad ADHD, and she gets that from her dad because her dad is very impulsive, loves to just do stuff whenever she wants, and we learn the backstory of the mom and dad and how they are immortal gods whose job is to protect the world from villains, essentially, or just these other immortal beings that are evil from attacking Earth. The art was really good in this comic book, and we find out that the sister doesn't really like the mom, but the son loves the mom. He's a complete mama's boy. We get a flashback of what led prior to the sister getting to the house and what happened. She basically ran into this cornfield where a bunch of aliens were fighting, and it turns out her dad was there fighting them. So they got together that way, and then they ran all the way, or they drove to their mom and son's house to get them back and to help them fight these aliens. And at the very end, the mom and dad leave to go fight against these immortal beings, but then we end on a cliffhanger that completely gets me super hyped for the next issue. This was one of the best cliffhangers of the week, and it made this book go from a solid B+ to an A-. Just Brutal. Issue number 2 is an A- for me. Great book from Ignition Press, and Dennis Hopeless doing a great job with Ignition Press over there. Next, in the top 3, we have Green Lantern, issue number 33, 56 pages, $6. Issue number 600 for Green Lantern. The rise of Kyle Rayner starts here. Love the premise of this book. It follows Kyle Rayner making his way back to Earth after he is now going to be searching for these intergalactic prisoners who came to Earth, and he makes a pit stop in LA because he loves LA, and he's with Odyssey right now, who's this time-traveling character who in the future gets together with Jay, I believe, her Wally's son. I believe that's what happens. But we follow Kyle Rayner. He gives his origin story to Odyssey after she's like, well, what is your origin story? And we get that told to us once more. Very sad story, by the way. And then we get an intermission here with Wally picking on Kyle for his rundown apartment that doesn't look great. And he's like, you can do a lot better than this, Kyle. And then he tells him to go get a job at this, I guess, movie studio and go be an artist for them. And when Kyle goes to find out if he has a job opening, there's this intergalactic prisoner that has taken over the CEO of this movie studio. So Kyle fights him off, everything. And it's a whole lot of AI talk because the AI is kind of what is allowing this alien to have these extra powers and create these illusions in the world that can really help the alien. But Kyle Ghostbusters him out of the human, and Kyle saves the day. We get an end story of Hal Jordan and where he is on this random ship fighting against these manhunters. But Green Lantern, great issue here with Jeremy Adams. A cool story at the end, by the way. Didn't really want to recap it because it wasn't relevant. But Green Lantern, issue number 33, an A comic book for me, kicking off the top 3. Coming in at my number 2, we have the Fantastic Four, issue number 9, 32 pages, $4 for this comic book. Invincible Woman terrifies me. She was so scary in this comic book and throughout this whole arc. Next issue, issue number 10, is the finale to this Invincible Woman arc. But in this, Invincible Woman wasn't even going full strength. She just wanted to get to Susan so that she could create another version of her. That is what the moral of this story has been for Invincible Woman. She knows that she is the most OP character in all of comics, when you get rid of her human mentality, when you get rid of the guilt, rid of the sadness, and you just go with curiosity and joy. Those are the only two emotions that Invincible Woman is able to comprehend right now because of all the sadness that she experienced in her actual life when she killed all the heroes on Earth in her sleep. So she just wants to create another version of herself, but the Fantastic Four escape narrowly, and they're now being chased by her through space. And Reed calls up Earth and he's like, hey guys, y'all need to make sure that this Invincible Woman doesn't confuse y'all. But we find out that on Earth, it's being invaded by aliens, but Marie Hill is using this as a tryout for their new Fantastic Foundation team up. By the way, next issue is that final issue of this story arc. So when that wraps up, we're going to get the Fantastic Foundation coming next. But this is so good. Ryan North absolutely killing it with the Fantastic Four. One of my favorite books going on at Marvel, maybe my favorite book going on at Marvel. That was an A book, but it was not pick of the week. It was almost Superman. It was almost DC Marvel, Superman, Spider-Man. But this one was just way too good. Absolute Wonder Woman, issue number 18. My pick of the week, 32 pages for this comic book, $5. This book has the best paneling in comics. And Hayden Sherman's artwork is so extremely good. I just wanted to give that a shout out. Also to both Jordan Belair on the colors and Becca Carey on the lettering, because they truly bring this comic completely and wrap it up in a tight bow and knot. So good. In this issue, we get the battle of Diana and Zatanna. Diana gets her arm kind of just, she gets it melted off by her dad, Giovanni, by Zatanna's dad, Giovanni, and then she goes on the run. By the way, I love this little title card. I think it's so great. This is part 3 of 5 of the Season of the Witch. And then we get this little story, not story, but a flashback to Diana and Cersei talking to each other. And she's talking about love and how I don't know how to prepare you for any of it. You must stay open and compassionate. You must love everything. You must love all. Everything we've done is for naught if you don't do that. And that leaves you dangerously open, my darling girl, vulnerable and exposed, because the more you love, the more exposed you are to the world. And you have to become the most exposed person in the world in order to have these people live healthy and safe lives. And then we continue on with the battle of Zatanna and Diana was kind of angry at Zatanna for good reason, but then they come together and they're like, okay, we're both kind of cool. We're both witches. Unfortunately for Diana, she makes friends everywhere she goes. Art, so good. The paneling, great. The writing from Kelly Thompson has been great. I enjoyed this story. Good setup for the next battle upcoming with Diana. Going back to Earth and setting up the battle for Diana versus Giovanni. That's a great comic book. I mean, Absolute Wonder Woman, issue number 18. I did a probably terrible job at recapping it, but this is my pick of the week, an A+ comic book for me. But guys, let me know down in the comments what your favorite book was this week and what book you are most looking forward to for next week, as I have my top 10 upcoming. But guys, keep remember, always read those comic books panel by panel, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.